So, welcome to part 2 of lesson on walls. Today we're going to be looking at doing our window and our door, understanding how we plumb it. We allow for the rough buck, making sure that our rough opening is going to be accurate, and we're going to talk about the lintel and the bearing that needs to be over top of the lintel. So let's get started. So as you can see here, what we're doing here is we're building our doorway here. And one thing is, I started this, but to keep in mind, we've got a rough opening here already. And I've allowed for the rough buck, and I've allowed for our rough opening of our door that we're going to be ordering. That's got to fit in here. So one of the key things to keep in mind is we have to try and keep the cuts as straight as possible. Now here the nice thing is I can trim this up a little bit, but I use my 4-foot level or a 6-foot level, and I am making sure that all my blocks are plumb. So as you can see, I'm keeping my blocks plumb. So I want to make sure that this is plumb all the way up. So I'm going to put a couple of blocks in showing that this is going to stay true. Making sure they're facing the right direction. Okay, now I'm going to use a level here to ensure that I'm running true. And we're looking good. Now we can lock it in place. And I'll build this all the way up to the point where we're ready for our lintel. So, to establish a rough opening on our OSBLOCK here, what I've done is this window is going to be centered on this wall. I looked up what the RO was of the window. The window is going to be a rough opening of 25 by 25, as you can see there. Okay, so what I've done is I've done a center line of where it's going to be, and half of 25 is 12.5, and then I go to 25. Now, as you can see, I've got my 2 lines here. That's my rough opening. As you can see, what I've established here is I've gone an extra 3/4 of an inch because my 3/4 of an inch is my rough buck, which is going to be plywood. And that's how I get started. And then I've measured to my corner here. Seeing I've got 29.25, and on the other side I've got 25.25. And I know I'm going to be 2 levels high. One thing to establish is I've got my height of where my window is going to be. My window could be slightly lower, so what I'm going to do is I'll build the 2 blocks up, I'll put my lintel on, and then later I will measure my rough opening and measure down to make sure that this is where it needs to be. And if I have to, I will trim the bottom using the chainsaw. Put on my shoulder for now till you get in. Okay, you ready? I'm gonna drop mine first. Okay. 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 Thank you. As you can see, we've got our lintel here. So this piece here we're going to be cutting out when we clean this up on here. And from the edge of the rough opening of any opening, we have to have a minimum bearing of 6 inches on either side. So with OSBLOCK, we can have an opening up to 7 feet, giving us 6 inches on either side of that. Anything beyond that, then we'd build using LVL, we'd be using 2x12, making up a lintel to bridge that even wider. But for now, in this case here, we've got our lintel in place, and we'll be putting a lintel over top the door. to recap for today, what we did is we've talked about our rough openings, allowing for our RO plus our buck out on this, which is going to be plywood faced all the way around. We talked about the lintel. As you can see here, the lintel for the window, the bearing has to be 6 inches past either side of the RO for the lintel to work. When it comes to our openings, especially our doorways, I use a level, I use a straight edge to make sure these are plumb and running through. There's a little bit of trim work that has to be done before I put my rough buck in here, but that's it. So this is how basically the walls go in. On our next segment, we're going to be looking at doing the buck out. We're going to be looking at putting some trim around the bottom to tie in and prep for our vapor barrier, not our vapor barrier, our wind barrier, and siding and interior finish, okay? And then we'll be prepping for our roof. So as always, we're building a better future for today's technology. Have a nice day.